The near future, it seems, is a great place to have a pretend war these days. Mercenaries marks the second imaginary modern military conflict that Pandemic Studios has cooked up over the past 6 months, though it's a much more action-oriented, hands-on experience than last year's Full Spectrum Warrior. It's also a much better game overall, partially because its rather grim premise comes along with a nod and a wink, and also because it provides fiery, visceral thrills at a breakneck pace. The game takes place in a ripped-from-the-headlines version of North Korea. After it's discovered that the North Korean government has a bevy of WMD programs and is selling weapons to terrorists, the country quickly finds itself infested with Allied forces looking to dismantle the power structure, Chinese forces looking to incorporate the war-torn country into another province of the People's Republic, South Korean forces, under the unofficial guiding hand of the CIA, looking to reunite the fractured halves of Korea, and Russian mafia forces just interested in getting paid. You play as a mercenary whose primary objective is to hunt down General Song, the dictator of this fictionalized version of North Korea. Though you're given basic ethical guidelines of not murdering civilians because it's bad for company PR, you're free to play the field however you see fit. Mercenaries looks an awful lot like a Grand Theft Auto knockoff at first blush, but it's much more linear and mission-based. The contents of the missions are pretty standard issue and will have you fending off enemy forces from tactically important locations, stealing enemy equipment, assassinating enemy officers, destroying enemy equipment and/or structures, and the like. But the immersive nature of the game's world keeps things interesting. One of the more unique and interesting aspects of Mercenaries is the nature of your interaction with the different factions. Though you'll often be acting against North Korean forces, there are missions where you'll have to attack one of your 4 factions you've been working for. Your working relationship with each faction is represented by a mood meter, which goes from friendly to hostile, and a hostile faction won't be as interested in offering you assignments as riddling your body with shrapnel. There's extra incentive in keeping the Russians happy, since they can supply you with weapons, vehicles, and additional support on the fly. If they're mad at you, they will cut off access. Though collecting bounties and gathering intel from the various factions are your primary objectives, there are plenty of side jobs you can take at will. These range from simple checkpoint races to escorting a news reporter to an especially intense firefight. There are also standing offers which can help you curry favor with the different factions. For example, the South Koreans themselves don't much care for the presence of the large, aggrandizing statues of General Song that punctuate the landscape, and are made happier when you blow them up. Mercenaries puts a lot of stock in smoke, fire, and explosive effects, and these elements tend to dominate the screen for most of the game, which is great because they're executed with incredible aptitude. The sky is almost constantly choked with a smoky haze, and the landscape is fundamental in giving you a sense of this war-torn country. But it avoids becoming monotonous by providing subtle variations on this theme in different regions of the map. All of the characters and vehicles have a good look to them, which, like the story, aims just to the more dramatic side of realistic. There are some awkward pieces, but they're usually overwhelmed by the game's grossly over-the-top action. The voice cast in Mercenaries is the backbone of the game's sound design, delivering solid, believable performances that fit snugly into the characters. The best performances, though, come from Peter Stormare, the wood chipper guy from Fargo, or the nihilist from The Big Lebowski, who plays the gravelly-voiced Swedish agent, and Carl Weathers, a.k.a. Apollo Creed, a.k.a. Action Jackson, was born to play the part of the tough-as-nails African-American Army commander that he voices here. The game is good about creating atmosphere with ambient sound, though when it really wants to get your blood up, it'll kick in with a powerful, urgent orchestral score, a haunting choir of voices, or the heavy, driving sounds of big Asian drums. The quality of the sound isn't this great across the board, though. Some of the weapon reports feel a little flat, and many of the engine effects don't sound as throaty as they ought to, and tires will often squeal even when you're rolling across dirt roads. Mercenaries is dense with content. Explosive content that satisfies on a real fundamental level. This is the most accomplished game that Pandemic has created yet, and it's an engaging experience that should appeal to action fans looking for a good, messy thrill.
Damn!